July 18, 2026. After surviving 21 days on nothing but salt and water, a 59-year-old man's organs are beginning to shut down. At night, police clash with protesters at New Delhi's Jantar Mantar, breaking through barricades before he is forcibly loaded into an ambulance. He was dragged away for starving himself in solidarity with a massive youth uprising, a demographic fighting the Indian education system under an unusual banner, the cockroaches. To understand why students are adopting the name of a household pest, you have to look at the pressure cooker they are forced to live in. In India, a student's entire future often hinges on a single piece of paper, the NEET UG exam, the national gateway to a medical degree. This chart shows the sheer scale of the bottleneck. Over 2.27 million young people sit for this exam every year, all competing for a fraction of a percent of available medical seats. Families routinely drain their life savings to pay for years of intense coaching, travel, and lodging, betting absolutely everything they have on this one test. When millions of families sacrifice that much for a single opportunity, they enter an unspoken contract with their government. They accept the brutal odds, but only if the state guarantees the test is executed flawlessly. In May 2026, that contract shattered. Investigators uncovered widespread irregularities and leaked NEET UG exam papers, forcing the National Testing Agency to abruptly cancel the results. The decision effectively punished students who had spent years studying honestly, while underground syndicates walked away with millions in illicit profit. Aspirants who thought they had finally secured a medical seat were suddenly told they had to start over, plunging their academic careers and their families' finances back into total uncertainty. When 2 million young citizens realize the system they've staked their lives on is compromised, it creates a dangerous vacuum of trust between an entire generation and its government. As the crisis escalated, the issue reached the highest levels of the Indian judicial system, with multiple petitions landing before the Supreme Court. During a May 15th hearing about online activists and unemployed youth reacting to systemic failures, Chief Justice Surya Kant reportedly compared them to pests, calling them parasites of society and cockroaches who attack the system. The comment sparked immediate national outrage across the country. But rather than issuing a standard press release demanding an apology, a 20-something communication strategist named Abhijit Dipke saw a different angle. The very next day, Dipke launched the Cockroach Janta Party, or CJP. It was a sharp digital parody, directly mocking the ruined Bharatiya Janata Party while inviting anyone who felt unemployed, lazy, and chronically online to join. Look at this chart. Within a matter of days, the CJP harnessed the collective outrage of the NEET paper leak, rocketing past the ruling party's own social media metrics to hit over 20 million followers on Instagram. The satire worked because the cockroach identity perfectly captured the exhaustion of a demographic that felt completely discarded and ignored by the state. But the CJP moved beyond the internet. By June 2026, thousands of young Indians marched to Jantar Mantar in New Delhi, translating their digital memes into a massive physical occupation. They traded irony for concrete policy, releasing a 5-point exam manifesto that demanded mandatory technology audits for computer-based tests and direct financial compensation for students affected by leaks. The pressure amplified significantly when Sonam Wangchuk, a respected 59-year-old education reformer and activist, arrived at the protest site and announced an indefinite hunger strike in solidarity with the students. For 21 days in the sweltering Delhi heat, Wangchuk refused all food, surviving strictly on salt water while losing nearly 20 pounds of his body weight. Medical bulletins began warning of severe electrolyte imbalances. Wangchuk had developed hypokalemia, a dangerous drop in potassium levels that left him at imminent risk of cardiac arrest. This brings us back to the night of July 18th. Acting on directives from the Delhi High Court to preserve his life, police moved in, breaking through the human chain of protesters to transport him to Safdarjung Hospital. The reality of a national icon on the brink of death forced the government to confront the Cockroaches as a legitimate and dangerous political movement. In the courtroom, the Supreme Court eventually ruled that the immediate challenge to the NEET re-examination was legally infructuous, since the test had already been re-administered. However, they kept the door open for sweeping institutional reforms. Outside the courts, the political landscape had already warped around the protesters. The CJP had successfully forced India's mainstream legacy political parties to adopt their exact policy demands. The Indian National Congress launched its own nationwide campaign called Chatron Ki Gunj, directly echoing the Sting's calls for strict national anti-leak laws and the total restructuring of the National Testing Agency. What began as an Instagram account with a pest for a logo had accomplished what traditional lobbying could not. It forced major legislative conversations and shifted national education policy. The 2026 Jantar-Mantar protests show exactly what happens when state institutions fail a demographic that has nothing left to lose. The 2026 protests proved that for a generation raised online, weaponized satire serves as a highly organized tool for dismantling the institutions that fail them.